Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. It's the only backpacking show where the hosts are so far apart, opposite ends of the map, that they can scarcely bear it. I'm Alun, and I'm here with the ever-dogged Adam.
Alun, what I get up to in my spare time is none of your business. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining in for another week. We really do appreciate it. We got a wicked show this week. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing, where I've been, and arguably the biggest roller coaster that I've ever been on, emotionally, not literally, because it involved a ferry.
I can't wait, Adam. I'm still here in Seoul having a proverbial whale of a time, yes. And I'm excited to hear about what it is that you've been up to, really.
So, as you can see, I'm not currently in my van, and that is because I'm now in Auckland. I've managed to hole up for a few days. It's really nice after weeks and weeks of driving around. I am going to continue on my road trip, don't worry, you guys listening at home. But I'm in a place called Veranda's Parkside Lodge, and they very kindly let me use this lounge area. If I could spin the camera around, I would. But it's a great place to stay, really well located, highly recommend it, and I've extended 4 times already. So it gives you some idea of how much I like living here. But I'm going to tell you a little story about how I got over to the North Island, mate, because it was, in recent memory, the worst travel nightmare I can think of.
Wow. And we've been through some things pretty much like hell together. Do you remember that time we took a taxi ride and nearly fell off the side of a mountain? Do you remember that time someone put their finger in my mouth on a bus? Do you remember when there's been a lot of food poisoning and difficulties over the course of the last couple of years? So I'm interested to hear how they were surpassed by these happenings.
Yeah, I think it was just because there were a few deadlines that we needed to meet. And in terms of a logistical issue that changed the shape of our trip, it just made it incredibly difficult to imagine that we could still do all of the things we wanted to do because of how much of a monumental fuck up this would have been. So I'll set the scene. We were doing the Queen Charlotte track, which is, again, another one of these hikes. I know we're talking about walking and hiking a hell of a lot, but if you're not doing that in New Zealand, I don't know what you are doing.
Well, for me, I was working in a music shop and living in a crack house, so I barely went on even one hike.
Fair enough. Living in the crack house. I've not done any of that. I mean, that doesn't seem to feature on a lot of the lists that I've been reading. You know, the top 10 must things that, top 10 must do things in New Zealand. But
yeah, you've got to type in hidden gems on a shoestring budget.
That's amazing. That's funny. Having said that, though, I mean, if you aren't interested in the outdoors or beautiful landscapes or adrenaline sports, doing these really sort of long walks through hiking, I don't know. Really, unless you're into farming.
Well, and New Zealand has the highest rates of promiscuity in any country in the world. So
okay, I didn't know that. Is that a fact?
I'm just stating the facts. Yeah.
Okay, you're the facts guy. But people have asked me. People have contacted me and said, what should we do in New Zealand? How do you feel about the place? What's your takeaway? This kind of stuff. If you're not into the outdoors and spending time outdoors and camping and walking and this kind of thing, I struggle to think. I mean, just all of the people that we meet are into all that sort of stuff. So important.
And all the people that you don't meet are doing the promiscuity thing.
Yeah, you're probably about right. But yeah,
I've noticed that there's never any private rooms available whenever I'm traveling in New Zealand.
It is,
and everyone's having sex in the dorm room.
Yeah, amazing. They're a slow pace of life, of course, if that's what you're into, slowing down, going back to sort of maybe more simpler times, not in an offensive way. But Jimmy Carr, the comedian Jimmy Carr, I can't possibly say this joke without mentioning his name. He was on a tour of New Zealand recently, and he did say New Zealand's not just a long way away; it's also a long time ago. And that really tickled me because I've kind of felt that sometimes. I love living here, I really do. Of course, my experience has been amazing, but it is it's quite on the nose.
Okay, right. So you feel like you're blasting in the pasting.
Blasting in the pasting. We did the Queen Charlotte track, which again is at the very top of the South Island, the northern part of the South Island. People are rallying, people are signing petitions, all sorts of stuff to try and get this to be one of the great walks, the 11 great walks that New Zealand currently has. But it hasn't been designated as one just yet. But it is fantastic.
I'm on the government side with that.
11's a good enough number, is it? Don't add a 12.
I think so. Doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? The 12 great walks, because people get discouraged off the bat. They go, "Oh, 12's a bit much. 11, just right."
Yeah. So just picture this, mate. You've got Picton, which is the ferry point to go from Picton over to the North Island. The ferry goes to Wellington. I don't know if you took that journey yourself, but the Queen Charlotte track is pretty close to Picton. So people come and stay in Picton, and then they might take 3, 4, 5 days to do this. I think it's 60 odd, 70 kilometres, something like that, through the Queen Charlotte Sounds. Again, absolutely stunning, beautiful, sort of rolling hills, mountains, little forest, going into inlets and coves and beaches, lovely beaches, this kind of thing. So amazing, amazing time. Now, we already had the ferry booked over to the North Island. So we had 3 or 4 days to play with, and my partner and I thought, why don't we do the Queen Charlotte track? We love walking, otherwise we wouldn't fucking be here, would we? And there's also a boat service that can take your luggage, i.e. the tent that we were carrying on all the other walks, all the way along to the different points you stop at. So you basically get to Ship Cove, where Captain James Cook and his men stayed for a few months, if I'm not mistaken, all those years ago. And you walk all the way down, and then at your first stop, you can arrange it with the boat team. They will drop your luggage off, so you unpack your tent, you stay there, and then they pick it up the following morning. You just leave it on the jetty, and then you get going. You walk 25 kilometres or whatever, and then it's delivered to the point you're going to camp at for the second night, and so on until you finish the whole thing, and then you just get a little boat back to Penticton. So logistically, it's certainly something to consider, but it is very possible. It's probably also the most expensive walk we've done because of that, but I would recommend it. So there we were walking along. You understand what we were sort of doing, I guess. And we were going to arrive at the final point of this walk, and then that night in the evening we were taking kind of an overnight ferry. I think it was roughly around midnight or something, arriving in Wellington a few hours later for the morning. So we would have the full day in Wellington. It just worked. It was bloody tight. It really was very tight. But assuming everything went well, we'd be able to have a couple of hours just to get our things ready in the van after doing the walk, have a little shower at the hostel that we left our van at, and then we would get the boat, and we're over and we're laughing for the remainder of our trip. And then cut to the day before we were supposed to get the boat, so this is now the second to last day of our long walk, I came to close enough to civilization, basically, that I got connection on my phone. There was, signal network, whatever. And I saw an email come through from Bluebridge Ferry, who are the ferry company that I'm going to name shame on air, who were amazing in the end. But anyway, I'll tell you about that a bit later on. Received the email, and it said, "Dear Mr. Cousins, we regret to inform you that your Bluebridge ferry that was due for tomorrow night has been cancelled due to a mechanical issue. You can either go online and reschedule, or you can cancel and we'll give you a full refund." And it was like 8 p.m. the day before we were supposed to go. We had no idea what we were going to do. It completely consumed us because we were already camping somewhere that was quite a lot psychologically. When we arrived at the campsite that night, we met one of the rangers, one of the DOC, Department of Conservation Rangers. We'd put our tent down, already set up, quite near the beach, in objectively a lovely environment with a beautiful view. And he came over and said,
"That's objectively lovely."
He came over.
Thanks for noticing.
He came over and said, "Hey guys, just a little message for you there. It's going to be about 120 kilometre winds tonight. So
You're going to get blown the fuck away there. Lovely though it fucking is.
And I was like, "Oh, 120, that sounds strong.
And your ferry's being cancelled, you donuts, you're absolutely fucked."
I think our Kiwi accent probably sounds decidedly Australian, but I was like, okay. Well,
you pommies don't have a clue, mate.
Don't have a clue. I've been called a pommie loads of times.
Yeah, well, you are one. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
He's sort of waited for us to react, and I was like, "Oh, what should we do? Should we just like get all our stuff in the tent?" And he'd be like, No, move your tent. Definitely move your tent. You put it up.
Did you hear me, mate? I said 120 mile an hour winds.
Not mile an hour. Then we would have been in real trouble. But they were super strong winds. We could sort of feel it coming in. And he basically told everyone that was camping along the beach, in front of the tree line, get back up the hill, try and find somewhere that's covered.
Okay, so you simply have to get your tent away, out of the danger zone.
Yeah, so after walking all those kilometres without the tent on our back, fair to say, we had to dismantle the tent, and then we walked all the way back up the hill with the other backpackers or hikers that were there, and then we found a nice little secluded section, sort of surrounded by trees, if you like. And then we had to deal, of course, with the stress of finding a new boat. So I'm there with pretty shit Wi-Fi connection or internet connection on my phone, going through the links in the email, and I was just so pissed off at the fact that this company had seemingly washed their hands with the responsibility of finding us a new boat.
How is you being pissed off manifesting itself? Are you sort of clenching your fists? Are you like huffing? Are you spitting? Are you getting into fights with the backpackers?
No, not at all, really. I just, I think I was just walking around in a circle, huffing and puffing.
Yeah, I know that off of
Yeah.
traveling with you in India. In the room in our dorm in India, there was a little like bit of carpet that had worn out in a circle shape where Adam had got pissed off.
I'm probably speaking a bit too much here, but basically, I think I was actually more annoyed at the fact that they had seemingly washed their hands of the whole thing, and they just said, "Oh, by the way, it's cancelled. There, you can reschedule at your own convenience, whatever. We don't care, or get a refund." I mean, what a way out that is for a company. They're doing absolutely nothing to try and reorganize things for you or offer any solution or give you any money off or anything like that. It was awful. So I was more pissed off at that than maybe the fact that the boat had been cancelled, which was kind of a strange thing to be in. So we're there, windy as anything. We can hear the trees moving. Wake up the following morning. I think, right, their office is open at 8. I'm sure they're going to be inundated with calls. But if I can get someone on the phone, maybe we're onto a winner. I'll see if I can just kind of charm something or see what the options are at least.
Yeah, you are good at that. You are quite charming. So I imagine that if you get a human on the phone, you'll probably end up with a couple of ferry rides or an upgrade to first class.
Yeah, maybe there is a way. So I opened the tent zip, the door, and there it was, half a tree that had missed our tent by a couple of meters. A massive branch. If it had fallen on the tent, we would have been in big trouble.
Wow. Was it closer to your side of the tent or your partner's?
It was closer to my partner's side of the tent, but not by much.
Interesting that.
It was kind of at our feet.
Who chose the location of the tent?
Me actually. Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? And you always sleep on that side, do you? Or do you swap and change?
We sometimes chop and change, but I was adamant in that moment. I was definitely taking the left side of the tent, away from those big trees that looked very, very old and, not flexible at all.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay. So after that failed murder attempt, what happened next?
We were walking down the track, and I got on the phone as soon as they opened. I phoned them at 8 o'clock. As soon as it ticked over,
so do you know what's happened to me this morning? I've nearly been killed by a tree, and I'm not in the mood for any nonsense, ferry folks.
That's it. Thanks very much. And the annoying thing is, we're walking through stunning location, and I'm there on hold. So it went 7:59, 8, bang, press the button, let's ring them. And I was on hold for 52 minutes whilst walking along the last day of this hike, and managed to get someone on the phone.
Now, do you remember the music still or no?
Don't remember the music. No, it was just one of those nondescript, kind of slightly jazzy numbers that was maybe taking the heat off things a little bit.
Because I remember hold music in New Zealand is significantly superior to hold music elsewhere in the world. I once was just a full Crowded House album played when I was on the hold.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wicked. Well, that would have put me in a good mood, but it wasn't that, unfortunately.
You're on hold. Here's the best of Crowded House and the Roman Empire. It was like that. It was great.
It would have been nice. I needed cheering up. But the guy came on the phone, and I was like, finally, thanks so much. Really looking forward to speaking to you. He said, look, let me just tell you now, at the top of this conversation, you're not going to like what I'm about to tell you. And I was like, oh.
It was me who sawed down that tree last night.
No, it completely disarmed me. I was there, ready to charm something if I could. But he said, you're not going to like what I'm going to tell you. So we had a conversation. I said, look, just tell me what the options are and then we'll work with those.
You're terminally ill. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong person. You actually, sure, I could do a refund.
You are going to like what I'm about to say.
Sorry, I'm working multiple jobs at the same time. I'm a doctor.
Can you even imagine? The options were basically, as the email said, either we get a full refund or we reschedule. And I said, look, just tell us what the earliest boat you can get us on is. And it wasn't for another 2.5 weeks, something like that.
Wow.
I mean, it was absolutely insane.
It was a big technical issue they were experiencing.
Yeah, they're only, because they're fully booked, because we're traveling sort of around Christmas, New Year, January time, every single boat that goes across was booked. So I don't know how many they've got in their fleet, but let's say they've got a couple of boats in their fleet. They just do doggy runs between the two islands. And we've got a van as well. So if you go as a foot passenger, you're likely to get on much sooner. But because we had a van,
No space.
we were already lucky to book that boat because we got told by a friend a week prior, if I was you guys, I know that you've got this kind of very packed out itinerary on the North Island. And then my partner had a flight that she needed to catch. So we really didn't have much wiggle room. And he said, I'd have a look at the bookings because they are, things are being booked up thick and fast. So we jumped straight online, managed to get a booking that we were really pleased with. That was the one that got cancelled. And then this guy said, I don't really know what I can do for you, to be honest.
Surely it's their priority to get you on a boat.
He said that same boat has had multiple technical issues, and this has now affected thousands of people over the last few weeks. So they're just kind of taking it out of operation, I guess, and working on it. But yeah, we don't really have a solution for you other than just book in 2.5 or 3 weeks time when there's availability, or you can go with our competitor who's slightly more expensive, and then you can maybe send us an email and we might pay the difference. That's kind of a little thing we're doing for people. I was like, this is crazy. There are people that come to New Zealand for 3 weeks and they get this ferry and they have a rental car. And it's their like one family holiday that year, or they save up.
That's what I did.
Yeah,
when I was there.
I mean, you're impacting so many people. There must be another option. He said, "There's nothing I can do, mate. My hands are tied." I said, "Okay, well, I'll think out of the box here. Why don't
when I come and live at your house for 3 weeks?"
No. I thought we can abandon the van. Which will be a shame, obviously, because we're in love with that thing. But we can come across as foot passengers. We can continue the itinerary. Like I said, we didn't have any room to maneuver because we didn't want to stop seeing all of the things or not see the things that we had wanted to see. I mean, this is maybe once in a lifetime we're down in this country. So we thought maybe we can hitchhike. We can maybe rent another vehicle. That's going to be at our own cost. I mean, these tickets are already $500 each to get a van between the islands, which is just extortionate at this time of year. And then maybe I can come back as a foot passenger later on for free at your cost because it's your issue and not mine, and you're, completely fucking up my plans, and everyone else's, the other thousands of people. And then I will come and get my van at a time when it's more convenient. But I only want to pay the one ticket that I've already paid. He said, yeah, mate, that sounds good. There's no reason why we wouldn't do that for you. I could totally understand. It's such a massive inconvenience. We apologise. If you want to do that, then... yeah, we can do that for you, but you will have to go and speak to the guys down at the office, at the kind of depot, where the boats launch from in the harbour and that sort of thing. But just tell them you've spoken to me. My name's Jack, or whatever his name was, and this is what you want to do.
And let me tell you, that name holds some weight down at the office.
Jack in the Wellington office. Just tell the guys down there you spoke to me. They'll sign everything off, and then we'll just go in that direction. So yeah, at least that was positive. We were going to do that. It wasn't ideal, but I do think that that's a great place to stop for the moment. We'll have a little breaky poo, and then I'll tell you the rest of the story in the second section.
All right, let's go on a capitalistic voyage.
Many of us go travelling to find ourselves, but what does that really mean?
Yeah, a lot of us go travelling searching for meaning, and while you certainly can find some answers climbing up a mountain or snorkeling in a beautiful reef, sometimes we need some help to even ask the right questions. That's why we've teamed up with BetterHelp in a paid partnership that offers you the chance to try therapy.
You know what it's like, Alun. Moving countries, time zones, jumping around from hostel to hostel, having no schedule. These are reasons travellers often rule out therapy. I've been using the service for 6 months and I've travelled a lot during that time. Organising therapy sessions using the online platform couldn't be easier. I've been working with my therapist on some deep-rooted issues and I'm now in a much happier place.
Yeah, starting therapy with BetterHelp literally couldn't be easier. You simply fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist as soon as possible. It's also easy to switch therapists at any time with no extra cost. BetterHelp strives to pair you with a therapist that's right for you.
With thousands of positive reviews, us included, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Tripology podcast and get 10% off your first month of therapy.
That was a capitalistic voyage. All right, Adam, what happens next in your story, mate?
So we went back down to the depot. We finished the hike. We're feeling sweaty, horrible. We haven't had a shower in a few days. We've got all of us.
You've had near-death experiences.
Yeah, we nearly got killed by a tree, all that sort of thing. And then we went in, not all guns blazing, but we parked at the Bluebridge Ferry terminal, where you could see there was obviously some distress. There were a lot of people milling around, waiting, trying to catch staff members. So I went in and spoke to them, and spoke to this lovely young lady and asked her what the options were, and basically told her the conversation I'd had with one of her colleagues on the North Island. And she said, I'm almost certain we're not going to be able to do that for you.
Jack wouldn't have said that, okay? That's not like him. Is something wrong with Jack?
Yeah, I know Jack. He's a doctor. No, she basically said, look, I'm sorry, but I really don't think that's possible. We can offer you a refund, or you can maybe book further down the line. I was like, no, I've already had this conversation. I've got an absolutely packed schedule for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and my partner's got a flight she needs to take. So there must be another way. Haven't you got like a standby list or something? She said, oh yeah, you can go on the standby list. I said, okay, great. So what does that mean? She said, well, you effectively just come to every single boat that you haven't booked on. And if there's space, on the odd occasion that there might be some extra space because someone cancels, doesn't turn up, which probably won't happen at this time of year because of the technical issues and the fact it's the busiest period of the year, then you get to go on. I was like, okay, so you have this sort of like list. We can be added to that, can we? Yeah. It's quite long at the moment, obviously, with the cancellations and stuff. I was like, okay, so if we go on this list, when do we get on? She said, well, there's no guarantee, but if I put you on now, you'll be 80th on the list. And I was like, okay, that doesn't sound promising at all. 80 is a massive number. And she said, yeah. I mean, the list is obviously rapidly growing, and we can only get, in some cases, no one goes on extra. But, you know,
Jack at the Wellington office keeps on putting people on the list.
Yeah, good old Jack at the Wellington office promising things he can't deliver. So I said, well, that's simply not good enough. I mean, do you have a supervisor? Is there management here that we can talk to? And she said, oh, yeah. I was like, can you get them, please? And, my partner's like, oh, God, here we go. So anyway, walks out, gets the this woman who's the supervisor there. She came out, and I could immediately see she had been inundated with calls. She was up to the eyeballs. She just did not want any of this to go on any longer. She was fuming, angry, down. She's just exhausted. She just had enough. And she was like, hi. I said, yeah, I'm sure you kind of know the story, the reason why we're here and that sort of stuff. And she was brutally honest and didn't, there was no charming her. She wasn't falling for it. I just had to say, well, what's the likelihood? And she was like, it's really unlikely that you'll get there in the next few days. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. And I was like, that's not good enough. This is not good enough. I said, there must be another option. She said, yeah, there is another option. It's the other ferry, which is more expensive. I was like, this customer service is just beyond.
But do they know you've got a travel podcast?
No, I didn't doubt that. I didn't say, look, by the way, there is a chance that if you don't let me get over for free or sort this out in some manner, then there could be grave consequences for you. But yeah, we were just feeling really dejected and stuff. And she said, look, what I would advise is you just go and get a beer.
And then another beer. And keep drinking beers until I'm off the hook.
As soon as she said that, I just thought, I can't believe you even said that. I just had no energy left in me. I'd fought the good fight and explained the story about me and my partner and all the things we wanted to do, and the fact that, it'd be such a colossal shame if we weren't able to do that because of this. And I really don't feel like Bluebridge really did anything to help us as an apology. And she was like, yeah, you and the 6,000 other people. I was like, okay, all right, now's the time for the beer. And now we're going for the beer.
The company's just so big that there's no like personal liability, right? She's just like, well, it is what it is.
Yeah. And also they've got like the monopoly, the two companies, because there's no other option. So
could there be? Could someone start another option, or you reckon they're bound by the government to be the only two?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are some must be government involvement because they're going across the Cook Strait, and it's also incredibly expensive business to run, I imagine. There's probably not that many other people in the conversation or at the table, but I don't know if they kind of lean into that. So we went away, we got a beer.
I love how you did what she said.
Oh, yeah, what else are you going to do in this scenario? I thought we could just drive around the South Island for another 2 weeks and book the latest boat. But we had so many amazing things planned, and the next boat that was available was only 2 days before my partner's flight. So we would have had to race, done an 8.5, 9-hour drive. And it would have meant that we didn't spend any time in the North Island at all, really. Most of it would be on the road, and it would just be before her flight. So it just wasn't appealing at all. And I said, why don't we let's go down to the terminal, make a nuisance of ourselves, and just try and get on every single boat. And maybe, who knows, maybe by tomorrow night or maybe the following morning, we might be here for another 2 or 3 days at least, because we're 80th on the list or whatever, thanks to Jack. But I don't know. Maybe it's better to be there and present.
I think
and
so.
See how it works and be.
I think that's smart.
Because you never know. People might have just made other plans. They might have cancelled their boat and got a flight instead, or
you're
whatever.
Basically doggedly pursuing the only advantage that you have,
which is that we're on the list and we're there with our van. And I suppose I thought maybe if we turn up slightly earlier. So we had the beer. It was nice. We were quite rightly feeling down. We went back to Bluebridge at the time they told us to. So we were there at about 7, and the boat that we were hoping to get on, or the next boat that was due to leave anyway, wasn't until about 9 o'clock. I walked back in, the staff immediately looked at me and they were like, oh, fucking hell, this guy again. I imagine that's what they were thinking in their heads. And I said, just announcing our arrival, letting you know we're here in the car park with the van, big smiles on our faces. We had the beer. You told us to have a beer. We're in good spirits. Incredibly optimistic. Thank you. And if you could just they basically have to note down that you are on the list and present, so that if there is any space, they're not flicking through the list wondering who's here and who's not. It got to about 9:30, so the boat should have already left. A lot of disgruntled people walking around in high vises, that sort of stuff. Not really much information being told to the people that were in the waiting area. Some cars were moving and stuff. But we just hadn't had any information at all, and there was no one going on the boat either. So I went over and spoke to a lady who had a high vis and a clipboard, and I said, I'm really sorry, I don't want to bother you. I hadn't spoken to this woman before. It's the first time I'd seen her. I said, I really don't want to bother you, but I was just wondering, is there any more information for people on the standby list for this boat? And she said, tell me your name. And I said, Adam Cousins. And she didn't even look down at the clipboard. She went, oh yeah, there's 2 of you. You're both on this boat now. I was like,
yeah.
What? She was like, yeah, we got you on. I was like, well, we were 80th on the list. She said, no, we know, but you're on, you're going. So if you could move your van.
Unfortunately, there's been a terrible incident and 79 people can't make it.
She said, you got to get moving pretty quick.
Jack at head office has gone mental.
He's picking you up in a speedboat now. He's just coming over from Wellington. But yeah, she said, look, get your van in this queue. You'll get a ticket. Just go around. But you guys are definitely on. And I was like, really? But it's definitely me. She was like, yeah, definitely you. You're definitely.
Adam, just take the win, mate. Really? Promise?
I just couldn't believe it, because the reality had changed. We knew we weren't going to be there. We knew we weren't going to be there for a couple of days. We'd already accepted that. And the funny thing is,
Karen from head office has just been telling people to go and have a beer. And if they do, we get them on the boat. It's a sort of sick mind game that she plays.
The crazy thing was, right, when I went and told my partner, her head nearly popped off. She was like, what, really? I was like, no, seriously, we need to get going. We're fucking on. We're fucking on.
Maybe that's what kept on happening. Everyone's heads were popping off and they had to cancel. You're on the boat. Okay, right, not you. You're on the boat.
There's 79 people before us. No heads. Just walking bodies walking around Bluebridge Ferry terminal.
Yeah, at some point we're going to have to stop telling people about the boat because they're immediately exploding.
God, that's a funny imagery. But couldn't believe it. Obviously, beside ourselves, absolutely amazing. Drove round. I mean, my partner said to me, I'm sure they just couldn't be bothered with the hassle, because I was so persistent, just like a dog with a bone. Oh, get us on there, all that kind of stuff. But the funny thing was about this story is that we actually ended up getting over to Wellington earlier than if the original boat had gone. So we actually won time, because our boat wasn't due to leave until midnight, and this one left at about 9:45 or something. So we actually, after all that, we didn't pay any more money, and it was just one of the best. In terms of the roller coaster, can you imagine the ups and downs, thinking that our entire trip in the North Island was just wiped away, thrown in the bin, and And then it was all possible, and we were over there with little Fergie the van, and it was just like, it was such a massive, wonderful moment. Great victory for the team.
I'm very, very impressed with your tenacity, your doggedness, your persistence. I think you're an excellent traveller, an excellent partner, and an excellent customer to that most famous of ferry companies, Bluebridge. So, goodness, well done, Adam. I'm incredibly proud of you, and I'm looking forward to hearing what sort of things you get up to in the North Island over the coming weeks now that you're there. I, of course, am still in Seoul, South Korea, and I'll continue to be here. We've got lots of stories coming up, lots of travel, lots of classic tripological tales of wonderment. For now, though, that's all we have time for before we head over to our Patreon. There's a link to our Patreon in the description if you want some bonus tripology content, and I know that you do. All you guys who don't want to pay anything, though, we'll see you next week.
Thanks ever so much for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.